Lost. In the void. Seeing, but not seeing. Standing, but not standing. Hearing, but not hearing. A voice echoes around his mind repeatedly and incessantly. Idris feels the hairs on his neck stand up. Find him. Those two words again and again. Suddenly, he feels something in the palm of his hand. Looks down. A gold ring sits there, shining in the darkness around him, inlaid with a tiny piece of ruby. He marvels at the craftsmanship, but does not slip it onto his finger. It is not his to take. It is a gift. His nostrils fill with the acrid smell of battle. He is standing in the temple district of the Imperial City. Smoke and fire engulfs the street. Shattered buildings and cobblestones surround him, and bodies litter the ground. Imperial soldiers. Old Mary soldiers. He is disturbed by the silence. There is no sound at all, save for the crackling of nearby fires. He walks on through the carnage, sword drawn. Only then does he notice that blood covers his robes and drips from the blade of his sword. He aches all over, both from the exertion and something else. He realizes that he feels very old. He runs a hand across his face and feels weathered wrinkles and a receding hairline. His conscious self seems to think that he should feel alarmed, but no. Everything, somehow, is just right, as it should be. He looks up to the doors of the Temple of the One. There, alone, amongst the bodies, is a single Imperial soldier. His armour is battered and worn, covered in blood and grime and soot. He wears no helmet and carries only a flimsy shield and a short sword. He's very young, probably a conscript, hastily armed and thrust into the battle line with no experience and very little training. He's looking at the bodies scattered around him with what seems to be disinterest, as if he is waiting impatiently for something or someone to arrive. Idris steps forward, and the two lock into a silent stare. Neither approaches the other. Idris is unsure of what he must do. The Imperial stretches out an open palm. He wants Idris to give him something. Idris nods slowly with understanding. He takes the ruby ring and reaches forward to give it to the soldier, but at the last moment flinches. Suddenly he is overcome with a great fear. He feels as if he is in the gravest of mortal peril and snatches the ring away in a clenched fist. The soldier looks surprised, and Idris backs away, positively shaking with terror. The Imperial stretches out his palm once more, offering again to take the ring. Idris just shakes his head. There has to be some other way, some other route open to him. There always has been before. Before he can think any further, however, a sharp, stabbing pain rips through his abdomen. He collapses. The ring falls from his hand and lands on the blood-soaked cobbles. It is not his to take. It is a gift. Slowly his eyes close, and then suddenly he is awake. Idris blinks away the remnants of his strange dream, and looks about the room. All the other mages, it seems, are already up. He's overslept, yet again. He gets up and dressed, and immediately decides to head downstairs. He has no time for breakfast. He can eat something on the road if needs be. Today is the day he travels south, to the Guild of Archaeology, and already nothing is going according to plan. This, by his reckoning, is the 250th day since he arrived in Cyrodiil, and it's been around 7 months or so since he was first allowed entry into the Arcane University by Ravenous Polus. Some of his fellow magisters offer perfunctory greetings as he leaves, but Idris doesn't have time to stop and chat. Besides, they already bid him farewell last night over a vintage bottle of Cyrodiil Brothers wine, procured with not an inconsiderable amount of difficulty from Archmage Travan's own personal collection. It's been a slow half-year, with Idris accomplishing little other than writing in his books and making the occasional excursion to some of the small Ayleid ruins on the ring road outside the city. While only an evoker in the guild, Ramnus was still quick to offer him a position as an honorary tutor on the subject of ancient ruins and the practical considerations that must be made in their exploration. Aside from Irlav Jarol, who was constantly away on fieldwork, Idris was without match among most of the university staff when it came to raw experience, and he took up the position without much hesitation. He rubs his shoulders in the chilly air. For a week now, there's been light snowfall across most of northern Cyrodiil. Exceedingly strange for this time of year, it has to be said. Naturally, all and sundry had different superstitious explanations for it, ranging from the Emperor's death last year to a curse from the Daedric Prince Boethia. Of course, Idris knows better than that. There's clearly some scientific explanation for these odd weather patterns, he just hasn't figured it out yet. The Arboretum, of course, looks as beautiful as ever. Idris is quite sure that there must be some form of enchantment that protects the place from the passing of the seasons, as evidenced, he claims, by the constant visits of the priestesses of Kinnereth to the gardens here. He opts to head straight for Green Emperor Way, rather than walk through the arena grounds as per his usual route, just to save time. In spite of his initial disgust at the notion of gladiatorial combat, he has, through boredom, if nothing else, found himself spending increasing amounts of time in the arena stands, watching the duels and occasionally betting too. He is quite convinced that the duels themselves are entirely rigged, otherwise how could the institution possibly survive with a real 50-50 odds for every single bet? Furthermore, he believes he may have found a way to mathematically calculate the result of every match before it's even begun, but of course, to prove it, he would be required to visit the arena on a regular basis, solely in the interests of scientific inquiry, you understand. At present, Idris is on his way to the Market District, specifically the prestigious Bank of Cyrodiil, at which he has both an account and a collection of safety deposit boxes. It became quite clear immediately after moving into the university that he couldn't simply leave his collection of highly dangerous magical artifacts just lying around in the mage's quarters. Imagine the damage that could be caused if one of the apprentices got their hands on his staffs, or worse yet, some of his more powerful scrolls. Since he didn't fancy being held responsible for any potential mass electrocutions, he made his way to the bank and paid the princely sum required to store his items in the vaults. He wasn't entirely comfortable with it in truth, especially since those very vaults had been broken into by a particularly cunning thief last year. But he really didn't have any other choice that didn't involve burying it all in chests in a field somewhere like a madman. As he enters the Market District, he throws a casual glance at the pile of loose Ayleid stonework stacked up against the wall of the first edition bookshop. A notice reads that they are to be collected by the Archaeology Guild and must not be tampered with, but he's quite sure those stones have been there all year. He wonders if perhaps the guild simply forgot about them, and decides that he will have to make a point of reminding them when he arrives later today. As he enters the bank, he gives a respectful nod to the clerks Esturgio. They are regular acquaintances since Idris drops by to check his account balance quite often. At present, the total stands at around 22,000 gold pieces, the last 2,000 of which he's accumulated as compound interest since opening the account last year. As he is so familiar, he is able to freely head down to the vault, where he begins sorting through his belongings. Here are stored his collection of books, magic artifacts, weapons, and other curiosities he has accumulated on his travels. He pulls on his magical robe and travelling gear, and selects a number of items to take with him for the journey, including his sword, Wrath, his major staff of telekinesis, which he was awarded with shortly after entering the university, his antique elven gauntlets, 1 potion of cure disease, 13 potions of restore health, 10 potions of restore magicka, all mixed by himself, a handful of alchemical ingredients including his largest bag of flax seeds, 5 flasks of cafe, 4 welkin stones, a bedroll, and the warlock torch. It should be more than enough, in theory, but he prefers to be prepared rather than caught short, as a dangerous encounter a month ago with some vampires in the southeast sewer tunnels proved to him. As Idris makes his way through the Elven Gardens district, his mind wanders back to that particular encounter. It began as a simple walk around the outside of the city walls before his next lecture at the university. As a result, he was lacking all but his old Ayleid dagger and what reserves of Magicka he could muster at the time. He'd found an abandoned sewer entrance and, hoping it might lead to a collapsed Imperial substructure of some sort, he set about exploring it. Unfortunately, the tunnel turned out to be the home of a nest of vampires, and our intrepid explorer was saved only by the timely intervention of a party of orc treasure hunters who had been also combing the southeast sewer tunnels at the time. With the trip to the bank now done, his final destination is the stables, where his horse Elba is still waiting. The beast has had far less exercise than Idris would like of late, since his trips to the Ring Road ruins have become far less frequent as the weather has gotten colder. They were brief forays, since those ruins were mostly picked clean already, and almost always small in size. Of course, it could well be that some new denizens had moved into them since his last visit. He makes a mental note to keep an eye out while on the road, lest he become the target of yet another hapless bandit ambush, or worse, prey for a marauding pack of trolls. As he heads for the gates, his excitement becomes palpable. It's been a long time since he went on a proper journey, and the new opportunities he might find at the Guild of Archaeology seem limitless. One of the gate guards amiably inquires as to his destination. Idris simply smiles and replies, "I have no idea."